Now, Chinese military scientists discussed the deadly potential of using SARS coronaviruses as weapons of mass destruction 5 years before the explosion of COVID-19 from Wuhan, the pandemic that's changed all our lives. In a top secret document published in 2015, senior scientists describe SARS coronaviruses as a new era of genetic weapons and predict a third world war could be fought using biological weapons. It's just one of the many bombshell revelations about Beijing's culpability for the COVID-19 pandemic in Sharri Markson's debut book, What Really Happened in Wuhan, the cover-ups, the conspiracies, and the classified research. For more on this, Sharri joins me now from Sydney. Good to see you, Sharri.
Hi, Rita.
Congratulations on this new book. What else have you uncovered?
You have to buy it to read it, and it's on sale now, pre-sale on Amazon or Booktopia, so you can buy it and read it. It's not released until September. But, you know, it's been a fascinating investigation into this topic. As you know, most of the media around the world has been terribly incurious as to the start of the pandemic, why China covered it up, exactly how many people have disappeared or gone missing or died who tried to blow the whistle about the new virus. As a direct result, more than 3 million people globally have now lost their lives from the spread of a virus that could have been contained within China. The book explores that, and then it also investigates the actual outbreak of the virus itself and what the Wuhan laboratories were working on. And it's been a completely fascinating process to undertake.
Well, because early on, China did try to cover this up. They were arresting whistleblower doctors. They ordered lab samples to be destroyed. They certainly weren't acting like a nation that had nothing to hide, were they?
Well, the denial of human-to-human transmission, the denial that this coronavirus was infectious, was the single most irresponsible thing that the Chinese Communist Party did. They were very courageous doctors who knew the risks to them and yet still decided to spread the word on social media, on videos on YouTube, and in messages to their friends. And they just don't exist. Well, if they exist, we haven't heard from them since. So they're either dead or they're completely missing in Chinese brutal detention camps. So this was really a very deliberate cover-up. It wasn't until January 20 that the Chinese Communist Party admitted there was human-to-human transmission of the virus, and by then it had spread right around the world. And we've seen the impact that that's had. This could have been contained.
Oh, absolutely. But it's bizarre that we don't really talk about the spread of this virus across China, a heavily populated country of more than 1 billion people. They'd have us believe that this virus is raging around the world, but in China, it's eliminated. I mean, can we believe anything they're telling us at this point?
Look, it's very difficult to, even get hold of official figures from China, and then it's the question of whether that official data is accurate or not. And we saw that in the early days in January. They were only recording cases that had been officially tested, but they were refusing to allow people to get tested. They weren't recording the number of people who died. And we've seen firsthand the footage. We saw bodies piling up, being shoved into trucks. But officially, at that point, no one had died from the coronavirus, or very few people. So this has been a deliberate lie. I mean, you look at what President Xi was telling the former US President Donald Trump in those early phone calls. February 6, 2020, President Xi told Trump the virus would be gone by the warmer months, that Chinese herbal medicine could cure it. Just absolute falsehoods that the president at least seemed to believe, because he repeated that to the American people.
Well, how likely is it that COVID-19 was cooked up in a lab, not for scientific purposes, but as being developed as a weapon of war?
Look, it's a very difficult question to answer that specifically. The former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, has said that he thinks the virus emerged from a laboratory that was doing biological research. I've done a lot of research, and I've been investigating exactly what research China was doing in this area, and it's clear they had a highly developed bioweapons program that had been operational for many, many years in breach of the UN and international conventions and treaties on this type of research. It's very obvious that this was going on, and it did involve coronaviruses along with other pathogens and other viruses. So this is something to be concerned about. Obviously China's not going to be transparent about this, but there is a great deal of evidence that this is the research they were undertaking. You combine that with the fact that Chinese President Xi Jinping had instituted a civil-military fusion where universities, civilian universities, then come under the rule or the leadership of the Communist Party, of the People's Liberation Army in some cases, and the research that scientists might be intending for innocent purposes can then be utilised for the military. So as Peter Jennings and David Asher, who led the investigation at the State Department into the origins of the pandemic, and I've interviewed him, as both of those people point out to me, almost impossible. There's no line between bio-offensive and bio-defensive research.
Gosh, that's frightening stuff. Now, you report about this top secret, the documents that you've uncovered. It's made waves internationally. Here was top Republican Ron Johnson, who sits on the Senate Homeland Security and Foreign Relations Committee, responding to your story on Fox News.
I've got this story this morning, which was broken by Sharri Markson, based out of Australia.
It certainly doesn't shock me. When you see what China is doing, whether it's in the militarization of the South China Sea islands, their malign actions around the globe, we should have been concerned. And it does boggle your mind that Anthony Fauci continued to apparently fund gain-of-function research and cooperate with the Wuhan lab.
Now, what can the Biden administration do to get to the bottom of this? Because we had the so-called independent investigation, but they didn't get to the bottom of it, did they?
I just have to quickly correct you, Rita, before The Guardian and the Sydney Morning Herald jump all over us, because they've already been sending me questions today. This wasn't a top secret document. It had been published by a Chinese military PLA journal, which makes it even more concerning that a document that told people how and under which conditions to release a bioweapon had been published by a military journal, so it was in the public domain. The State Department then got hold of it, where they were investigating the origins of the virus, and I've interviewed the person who got hold of it, and that was in May 2020. Pompeo then and Miles Yu, his China advisor, then mentioned it in passing in the op-ed they wrote in February this year for the Wall Street Journal and published in the Australian. And after that, Chinese dissidents started to look for the document and circulate it online. So this wasn't a secret document. This had been published, right? Terrifying.
That's even more frightening. It was out there, it was out in the open, and yet most of the world, which has been changed irreversibly because of this pandemic, has been in the dark about it. That in itself is shocking.
Well, there were 18 authors who wrote this document. One of them worked for the Department of Epidemiology, China's official department. Another one had more than 100 students. About 53 of them were PhD students. One of his PhD students even then produced a thesis paper on claiming that SARS back in 2003 was man-made and had been a bioweapon that America had transferred into China. I mean, this is just crazy conspiracy theory stuff. The Global Times actually repeated that claim overnight. They attacked us at the Australians. This is China's mouthpiece, the Global Times, attacked us at the Australians for saying that this was a conspiracy theory. They think it's not a conspiracy theory, and it's very similar to how China's now claiming that COVID-19 was imported into Wuhan through frozen food or via the American military. So these absolute conspiracy theories that were contained in this paper that also spoke about how to unleash a bioweapon were taken very seriously by the Chinese leadership who published it in the military journal.
Oh, yes. I mean, China's blamed everybody for this outbreak. Initially, the US, Italy, even Australia. You mentioned the frozen food conspiracy theory. I can't wait to read your book. I'm sure it's going to be a bestseller, Sharri Markson. Congratulations on the book, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Rita.
So the book is going to be available, What Really Happened, published by HarperCollins. It will be released in September. It's available now for pre-order. Get your orders in.